1. If you have a stump in your yard and you just got a quote for $400 to make it disappear, a Piedmont farmer named Roy H. Halstead already settled this for you. In 1932, Halstead stood at the edge of 40 acres of stump field in Rowan County, North Carolina, and did the math on a piece of butcher paper. A land clearing outfit out of Salisbury had quoted him $3 a stump. He had 682 stumps. He had in a coffee tin under the porch $11.40. He walked back to the barn, took down a hand auger, and pulled a cloth sack of saltpeter off a nail his father had driven in 1897. By the following autumn, every stump on that bottom was gone. Some he had rotted soft as cornbread. Some he had burned down inside their own root crowns with a coal that glowed for 2 days. Some he had simply outweighed. He never wrote a check. He never rented a machine. Before we go on, there's something coming for this country, and the news won't say a word about it till it's already on your doorstep. It comes down to one number: 3 days. That's what the stores hold for you. Your grandfather's pantry held a winter, and the difference was never money. It was knowing. 94 pages of that knowing in one book. Water, fire, curing, canning, the plants that heal and the ones that kill. Links below. All right, back to it. And when the county agent came out in 1934 to see the corn he'd put in that ground, the agent asked him what contractor had pulled the stumps. Today, most of us look at one stump in the yard, get a quote for $400, and pay it. But here's the twist. Friend, the record now says almost every method that farmer used still works on your stump this year. And the fastest one of them was the one they quietly wrote laws against. I am the 7th generation on this ridge. My family settled it in the 1790s and never left. My grandfather, Elix, fed 8 kids off this mountain through the Depression and near everything I'm about to show you about clearing land. He wrote down in a leather journal and made me swear the old ways wouldn't die with me. This is me keeping my word. Some of what we're counting down was outlawed. Plain and simple. Number 2 is the one that makes a stump glow like a coal in the ground at night. And by 1976, more than a dozen counties had written it out of legal practice. Number 7, they used to sell it to farmers by the 50 yellow keg out of a hardware store. And today, you cannot buy an ounce of it without a federal license. And number 9, fewer than a handful of extension agents in this country will still tell you it works. A university confirmed it in 2020 and hardly anybody noticed. None of these methods faded because they quit working. They faded because somebody got rich the day you forgot them. That's not on you, friend. They're good at selling. Before we count down, tap subscribe because we're pulling buried knowledge back into daylight and you'll want the next one they'd rather you not see. Let's count down from 15. Not what did we lose. That question is finished. The question now is who got rich when you forgot, and how do you take it back this weekend on the stump in your own yard? Number 15, renting the grinder. The honest baseline? Start here so you know what you're being sold. A modern stump grinder rents for about $150 a day at the yellow sign yard on the edge of your town. And a certified arborist will grind the same stump for you for $250 to $450, depending on diameter. It works. It is fast. Your grandfather would have paid it too if he'd had the choice on the days he was tired. The machine was patented in its recognizable modern form in the 1950s, and by the 1980s, the rental economy around it had turned stump removal from a farm chore into a service line. That's the villain of this whole list, friend. Not because the grinder is a bad machine, but because the rental yard needs you to believe it's the only machine. The old man used to say, "Know what the man in town charges before you decide whether to do it yourself." Charged $400. 2 hours of work. Never a discount for repeat business. The next one down cuts that $400 to about $4, and it's what the arborists themselves use when nobody's watching. Number 14. The grubbing hoe and mattock. The 1890s farmstead method. Your great-grandfather cleared his first pasture with a mattock, a grubbing hoe, an axe, and a Saturday. A mattock in 1898 cost about 75 cents at the general store. The same tool from a hardware chain today runs you $35 and will outlive your grandchildren. You dig a trench 18 inches out from the stump. You chop the lateral roots as you find them. You rock the stump. You sever the taproot last, and the whole thing lifts on a stump under 8 inches across. An average man does the job in 90 minutes. They didn't ban this one. They just stopped teaching it. The county extension services shifted their farm bulletins away from hand-clearing methods through the 1960s and 1970s toward mechanical and chemical solutions. The equipment manufacturers were happy to underwrite. First stump I tried to pull with a mattock. I was 19 years old, cocky as a young rooster, and I broke the handle inside 40 minutes, and cussed my grandfather for making me learn it. Took me 3 tries and 1 new handle before I understood the trick was in the rocking, not the swinging. The old man had to teach me, same as somebody should have taught you. Mattock, patience, done. First pattern break. Neighbor. Here's where it stops being quaint handwork and starts being the reason somebody bought a lake house on your ignorance, because the next 4 methods are the ones the rental yard praise you never learn. Number 13. The 2-man crosscut. Cut low and splitting wedge method. Before the chainsaw showed up on farms in the 1950s, 2 men with a crosscut saw could fell a tree and then take the stump down to soil level in an afternoon. You don't leave a 2-foot stump. You leave a 2-inch stump. Then you drive splitting wedges into the crown along the grain, working outward toward the flare roots, and you split the remaining wood down into the ground. A crosscut saw in 1920 cost about $4. The same restored saw sells on the collector market today for $150. The old man used to say, "The height of the stump is the height of the problem. Leave it low, and the problem's already half solved." United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service field manuals from the 1930s taught this as the standard on woodlot clearing. It vanished from extension curricula by 1972. Right about the time, consumer chainsaw sales tripled. Wedge. Maul. Grain. Gone. Number 12. The stump puller. 1868 to 1890 farm patents. Between 1868 and 1890, the United States Patent Office issued more than 400 patents for stump pulling machines, cast iron tripods, screw jacks, chain and lever contraptions. A farmer bought one for about $22 in 1885, and it paid for itself on the first bottom he cleared, hooked to a team of oxen or draft horse. The puller multiplied pulling force 10 and 20 times over, and a stump that would have taken a man 2 days came out of the ground in 20 minutes. The modern equivalent is a hand-crank cable winch anchored to a standing tree or a truck bumper. A 3-ton hand winch runs you about $70 new. Penn State Agricultural Engineering Bulletins from 2018 still recommend cable winch removal for stumps under 12 inches on small acreage. They didn't outlaw the stump puller. They just quit making them because the market moved to a machine you had to rent. Winch, anchor, pull. And the next one, they actually classified a public health hazard. Number 11. Ring barking the tree before you fell it. This is the trick nobody tells you. friend, because it takes 18 months and there's no invoice at the end. You cut a ring of bark clean off the trunk all the way around, 4 inches wide, about hip high. You cut through the cambium, the living layer just under the bark. The tree keeps standing, but it stops sending sugar down to its roots. Within a year, sometimes 2, the whole root system is dead in the ground. Then you fell it, and the stump comes out with almost no fight left in it. Woodlot manuals from the 1780s describe this practice. The British Royal Society of Arts published on it in 1795. The Extension Services stopped mentioning it because you cannot sell a farmer a bottle of anything to make it work. Grace for the man who paid $400 last summer. Nobody told you. They weren't going to. The knowledge died because it couldn't be sold. Girdle. Wait. Fall? And when it fell, the ground was already halfway to giving it back. Number 10. The chainsaw flush, cut, and rot in place method. Here's the red chainsaw, and here's what it actually does. You do not use a chainsaw to grind out a stump. You'll ruin the bar! And the Centers for Disease Control counts roughly 36 rear-wheel chainsaw injuries in this country every year. Most of them on kickback from the bar tip, hitting dirt or a hidden nail. What you do instead? You take the stump down flush to the soil line with the saw. Careful with the chain, kept clean of ground contact. Then you let one of the next 4 methods finish the job. A homeowner grade saw runs $300. It'll last you 30 years if you sharpen it, and don't run it into rocks. I'm not your doctor, and I'm not the safety officer for your county. Chaps, ear protection, eye protection, kickback brake tested before every cut. If a stump has metal in it from an old fence line, you find it first with a magnet. Sharp saw, clean cut, live to sharpen it tomorrow. The next 4 are what finishes the job after the saw does its share. Second pattern break. We're through the mechanical half. From here down, it's chemistry and biology. And this is exactly where the rental yard loses its grip on you, because dirt, salt, sugar, water, and time do the work. Now, nobody sends you a bill for time. Seed. Number 9. The oyster mushroom method. Fungal inoculation. This is number 9 they warned you about. You drill a grid of 1/2-inch holes into the flush-cut top of your stump about 2 inches deep, 4 inches apart. You pack each hole with a plug of oyster mushroom mycelium that you can order for about $1 a plug from any mushroom supplier. You seal with cheese wax. The fungus eats the stump from the inside out over 12 to 18 months. And along the way, you get roughly 10 pounds of edible oyster mushrooms per stump. Per flush. United States Department of Agriculture. Agricultural Research Service work on Pleurotus. Wood decay was published in 2011. Penn State Extension issued a homeowner-oriented note on stump colonization in 2020. Fewer than a handful of extension agents in this country will bring it up because there is no product to sell. Eli wrote about this in his journal in '58. He was doing it before it had a Latin name attached in a bulletin. He called them tree-mouth mushrooms. The old man used to say, "Let the woods eat the woods." Dinner. Decay. 2 years gone. Number 8. The Appalachian charcoal pit smolder. The colliers in these mountains in the 1800s knew a coal will eat a stump if you let it. You bore 2 holes into the top of the stump at an angle, meeting near the base of the crown. You drop hardwood embers down one, and the other draws air. The stump smolders for 2 to 4 days, consuming itself down into the root crown without ever throwing a flame. A farmer in 1890 used it on any stump too big to pull. Today, most states with air quality boards have made open agricultural burning permit only or outright illegal in certain counties. California's Air Quality Management District wrote the first serious restrictions in 1976, and others followed. I am not walking you through open fire on your stump in a drought summer with a burn ban in effect and a neighbor's cedar shake roof 40 feet away. Know your county. Know your season. Know when it's the wrong method. Bore, ember, draw. And in the counties where it's still allowed. Done by breakfast on day 4. Third pattern break. We're in the top 7 now. And this is where the villain gets loud, because the next one, the one they used to sell you by the 50 lb keg, is now a federal license item. Same chemistry. Different century. Number 7, dynamite and stumping powder. The DuPont farmer market. From about 1900 to 1930, DuPont sold Red Cross farm powder. Dynamite. Formulated specifically for stumps and boulders. To farmers by mail order and out of the county hardware store. A 50 lb keg cost about $6 in 1915. The company published its own instruction pamphlet, Farming with Dynamite, in 1910, and by 1917 had shipped more than 100 million pounds of the stuff to American farms. It cleared land faster than anything before or since. Today, federal explosives licensing under the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, established in its modern form in 1970, makes it functionally impossible for a private landowner to buy an ounce. This one stays category level. Friend, I am not walking you through a charge weight, a fuse length, or bore depth on a channel that a 14-year-old might be watching. History, not how to. The point is not that you should do it. The point is that a farmer in 1915 had a tool for this problem you literally cannot legally purchase. And DuPont got rich, and then the licensing arrived. Not a conspiracy. Just how markets work. The knowledge died because the sale had to move upstream. Number 6. Rock salt drill and fill. Here's the one that cost you $3 and works on any stump under 16 inches. You drill a grid of 1-inch holes into the top of the stump, 6 to 8 inches deep, 3 inches apart. You pack the holes with plain rock salt, sodium chloride, the ice melt kind, not iodized table salt, and you cap them with wax or dirt. Rain does the rest. Salt draws moisture, disrupts the stump's cellular chemistry, and in 6 to 12 months, the wood is punky enough to break apart with a mattock. In 1935, rock salt cost about 2 cents a pound at the co-op. Today, a 40-pound bag runs about $8, and it does the same job Spectracide sells you in a $14 bottle labeled Stump Remover. The active ingredient in most of those bottles is potassium nitrate, cousin to what we'll cover in number 2. And the fine print always says may take 4 to 6 months. Same timeline. 1/5 of the price. The bottle doesn't do anything. The salt in your driveway can't. They just put a label on it. 4th pattern break. 2 methods left before the one that makes the stump glow. And I want you to notice every single item so far. The villain isn't a person in a black hat. It's a checkout counter with a barcode on the wrong bottle. Number 5. Cover and starve. The tarp method. Sunlight and air. Take those away from a stump for a long enough season and the stump surrenders. You cover the stump with a heavy black tarp or plastic sheet. Weight the edges with stones or soil, and you walk away for 6 to 12 months. Nothing photosynthesizes. Nothing respirates properly. The stump goes dormant. Then it goes soft. Then it goes crumbly. University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences Extension Bulletins in 2019 confirmed the underlying chemistry. Starve the residual living tissue in the root crown of light and gas exchange and decay organisms already present in the soil. Do the entire job for you. It costs you the price of a tarp, about $20 and reusable across a dozen stumps over the years. The old man used to say, Patience is the cheapest tool in the shed and the one nobody wants to pick up. Cover. Wait. And the ground gives it back on its own schedule. Number 4. Boiling water. The Ozark truck farmer scolded. Boiling water repeated, "That's the whole method." Truck farmers in the Ozarks in the 1930s used it on the smaller stumps and root suckers that came up in their vegetable rows every spring. You expose the top of the stump and the shallow lateral roots by scraping the soil back. You bore or chisel a few deep pockets into the crown, and every 3 or 4 days for a month, you pour a full kettle of boiling water directly into those pockets. Boiling water at 212 degrees ruptures cell walls and cooks the cambium tissue in the root crown dead on a 6-inch stump. 5 or 6 kettles finish it. It costs you the propane or the wood to boil water. No product. No permit. No bottle. The old man had a name for this one. He called it cooking the tree. Just cooking. Kettle pockets. Repeat. And in 5 weeks, the stump lifts out with a boot heel. Number 3. Epsom salt method. Magnesium sulfate desiccation. Same drill pattern as the rock salt. 1-inch holes, 6 to 8 inches deep. 3 inches apart across the top of the stump. But with Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate from the drugstore or the garden center. $6 to $8 for a 4 LB carton. Fill the holes. Cap with wax or wet dirt. Give it 3 to 9 months. The magnesium sulfate pulls moisture out of the wood cells and out of the fungal defenses the stump uses to resist decay, and the residual root system dies dry. United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service issued a fact sheet on magnesium sulfate desiccation in stump treatment in 2016. University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences backed the same chemistry in 2019, cross-referenced with rock salt. The difference between Epsom and rock salt? Epsom won't sterilize your soil around the stump for future planting. So, if you plan to put a fruit tree or a garden bed where that stump was, Epsom is the choice. The bottle on the shelf at the big box store that says stump remover for $14 will very often be potassium nitrate. Same job, same timeline, fraction of the price. Different label. Number 2, saltpeter, the glowing stump. This is the stump that glows in the ground at night like a coal in a hearth. You drill your holes, same pattern as numbers 3 and 6, and you pack them with potassium nitrate. Saltpeter, which you can still buy under the label stump remover in most farm supply stores or as a cold pack ingredient. You cap the holes and you wait 4 to 6 months while the saltpeter accelerates the decay of the wood down to the finest lateral roots. Then on a still evening after a dry week, you pour a little kerosene into the holes and you light it. The saltpeter-soaked wood does not flame like a bonfire. It smolders deep down inside the root crown, glowing orange and red for 1 to 3 days straight, and it consumes itself from the inside out. Halstead did this to 200 of his 682 stumps. By 1976, California's Air Quality Management District and more than a dozen county fire authorities across the western states had written open ignition of chemically treated stumps out of legal practice in fire season months. Check your burn ban. Know your county. Then look at the ground on a dry October night and understand what your great-grandfather knew. Number 1 isn't a method. Number 1 is the thing all 15 were pointing at. And if you missed it, go back and count how many times the invoice was optional. Number 1 is the right method for the stump you actually have done on your own timeline with tools you already own or can buy for the cost of 1 hour of a contractor's labor. Every method above works. Not one of them requires you to write a check to a rental yard. Not one of them requires you to be strong or young or trained. What they all require is that you stop believing the problem in your yard is somebody else's problem to solve. Halstead wasn't poor. Friend? Halstead was sovereign. He looked at 682 stumps and $11, and he did not conclude that he needed $400 more dollars. He concluded that he needed a winter. By the following autumn of 1933, Roy Halstead had cleared every one of those stumps for a total outlay of $11. 40 cents in saltpeter, kerosene, and mattock handles. The county agent who came out in 1934 refused to believe there had been no contractor. Halstead just pointed at the coffee tin. The rental yard isn't your enemy, neighbor, but the belief that the rental yard is your only option. That belief cost your family and your father's family and every family on your road more money than any of them can now count. Take it back one stump at a time. I'm not selling you fear, and I'm not telling you the rental yard is a scam. Some days the grinder is the right answer. If you've got a stump 2 feet across, tangled up in a septic line, and you've got Saturday afternoon, pay the man. I'm not your county's burn officer, and I'm not your doctor. Know your fire code. Know your saw. Here's what I want you to do this week. Not next spring. This week. Pick one stump in your yard. The smallest one. The one you've been looking at for 2 years. And pick one method from this list. Drill it and pack it with Epsom salt on Saturday morning. Or cover it with a tarp and a rock and forget about it till spring. Or take a mattock to it on a Sunday afternoon with a friend and a jug of water. One stump. One method. That's all. See what your grandfather already knew. I ran the saltpeter method on a red oak stump behind a smokehouse 2 winters back. Took me 6 months from drilling to first smolder and cost me about $4 in stump remover and a squirt of kerosene. Same as Stump, the tree service had quoted me $380. Tell me down below. Friend, did your granddaddy have a stump clearing trick that isn't on this list? I'm going to build the next video off the one that gets the most comments. So, if your family knew something, say so. Your great-grandparents cleared this country one stump at a time, and they did it with salt and patience and fire. Now the knowledge is back where it belongs. Yours. Next time we're going after the $2 pantry item your grandmother put in the garden that made the Extension Service redraw its bulletins in 1968. The one that fed her tomatoes better than any bag fertilizer on the shelf. And the one the manufacturer spent 30 years teaching your parents to be embarrassed to use. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Not for me, friend, because there is a 300-year library closing one old man at a time in this country, and everyone you save is one they can't sell back to your grandchildren. Keep the old ways. If this story changed the way you look at the stumps in your yard, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Plant the future. The next treasure will be opened soon.